Value is defined by your customer. Value is what drives their buying decision. Value, they generally is defined by the customer is the bang for the buck, if you will. It's what they expect to get and what they're willing to pay for in getting that. So when you provide a service or product to your customer, they don't look at just the product you're providing. They're looking at the entire value stream that they go through. And that may involve many touch points along the way that when you're interfacing with that client, with that prospect. And you need to perform each and every touch point flawlessly if you want to have a truly satisfied customer. Yeah.
A question, Gino.
Yes.
Why does the crumbled paper have to be torn?
We'll get to that.
What does
Excellent
that
question.
from the value of the paper?
Excellent question.
Okay.
You know
Hold that
thought.
All right.
My reader in the audience is getting a little excited. He's
Yeah.
jumping ahead. So hold that thought. Excellent.
Yeah.
So when you do have, so one of the things you're going to notice here, though, is satisfaction is a characteristic. Most people focus on satisfaction. Here we're going to do customer satisfaction surveys. That's what they focus on. But you'll notice satisfaction is a result. It is an emotional response to the buying decision. The value is what drives the satisfaction. So the value that you are providing, it is the leading indicator versus your satisfaction is your lagging indicator. It's after the fact. This is before and during the fact. So when you're looking at your operations, when you're looking at ways to improve, obviously these are very important. But the things that you want to do is if you can focus on capturing it up front, and the leading indicators, you want to try to do those. I heard a number, somebody had mentioned that they use in their business a 3-to-1 in terms of leading versus lagging indicators that they use. And obviously you've got your profit margins and things like that. Those are lagging. It's already happened. You're going to have to go back and fix it. Mm-hmm. So try to look at these to drive towards satisfaction. I'm sorry, question?
Yes. Will you have a handout on your presentation, or can you email it?
Yeah, I can
Things like
I'll be
that.
happy to do
Yeah.
it.
Very
Well,
good.
normally what we do, if the presenter agrees, we will put it on the website. The only thing I wondered, Gina, if you wanted it out there yet, since
Wait
you'll
till
be
after.
presenting this in the north.
Yeah, why don't we
Yeah.
wait? I can email you right away, but wait, we'll present it, post it after the next presentation.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so getting back to, again, this idea of the bang for the buck, when you want to improve your process, to improve an operation, you're going to have to look at this process. Another thing you need is going to be measures. You cannot tell, you need to be able to define what success is. Otherwise, you're not going to know if you've reached it, if you've accomplished. So you're going to need specific measures in your process when you're looking at your improvements. So, getting back to our process, one of the things about measures is you don't create measures just to have measures. You have to be careful because measures create behaviors. And you've probably all seen that in your work. There's a wonderful example in the UK. Several years ago, they implemented some measures for their healthcare system. Sound familiar? But yeah, one of those measures related to the ambulances. And they said that all accidents or all emergencies had to be reached within, not all, excuse me, 75% of emergencies had to be reached within 9 minutes of notification. So what do you think happened?
A lot of accidents.
Accidents, deaths,
Yeah, exactly.
failures, shall we say.
Right, failures, because it's not just the accidents. They would be responding to a call of a woman who stubbed her toe and bypassed the man who's having cardiac arrest, just so they can get and meet their quota. So they were having accidents and deaths. So the point is, be very careful when you define your measures. Look at, again, getting back to the total system, what's the trickle down going to be, the ramifications of those. All right, so let's look back at our process. Let's go back to our simulation now. We know what we want to improve, that opportunity. What should we measure for our improvement opportunity? You remember what the improvement opportunity was?
Satisfied
Time.
customer,
Right.
Duration.
1 minute.
Right, 1 minute, exactly. So what might be a measure to
Duration of activities.
a time? We want to go, so time would be a good measure, and you may have some other measures as well.
Question.
Yes,
These may not be applicable to all situations, as you probably know. If you're printing currency, you have to omit the crumble and the tear part. Because if the currency is crumbled and torn, it has to be replaced with the currency. And a measure of that of the effectiveness of your printing process might be how many millions or billions of dollars can we produce in a month, or a day, or an hour.
that's an excellent point, and I'm going to ask my Miss Jennifer to take note of that so that I can use it in future.
Yes, and not crumbled or torn.
Yeah.
And you might have a Six Sigma measure, what percentage of the currency bills that you print are crumbled and torn. You know.
All right, Barbara.
I don't know, I'm literally in healthcare, doctor's offices, practices, surgery centers, those type of things. When you're talking about documentation, you can apply this, but when you're talking about patient care, you have so many variables: risk management, quality of care, emergencies, late doctors, doctors who don't follow, So depend.
Excellent point. Again,
Everything impacts everything, right?
exactly. Again, that total systems perspective. And by the way, that when you talk about my quality focus, that's it, is looking at things from a total systems perspective. How do things relate? So we define our measures. Getting back to our process, we define what we want to fix. We define it in quantitative terms. We define what measures we want to use. Now we can start collecting those measures and analyzing to look at some of the data, how we're currently performing. And a good tool to do that is the run chart. A run chart looks at your performance over time. And what a run chart does is you'll have time on the bottom, and you may have the characteristic that you're trying to impact on the vertical axis. And so, as you can see, the run chart, how you perform over time here. Now, I threw this in to see if y'all are awake. I didn't get any chuckles, so I'm wondering, are you sleeping? Okay. All right, so if we actually look at our process, here we have the time value on the bottom, each day that we're going to process the balls and how many seconds it takes us to process the ball. And so assuming our time came in at between 80 and 140 seconds. And actually I think we came in pretty close to that. But, and so this is what a run chart does, is it looks at performance over time. So having just one measure, though, it tells us it tells us certain things, but it doesn't tell us as much. The more granular you get, if you have more measures, the more granular you can get more information out of that data. As you can see here, the same run chart, but we've broken it down by timing each activity in it. So what is this? This kind of tells you, we can see we spent just a very little time on the crumbling process, and we were pretty steady along there, right? Looking at that, what that tells us. Same thing with the rolling. The tear person, she took a...
I have a lot of variability. I have bad days and good days.
Yes, you got a lot of stuff going on there.
Yeah.
And then
We have the biggest opportunity for improvement too.
yes, excellent point.
Whoa.
Whoa.
You go in
I
that.
know my run charts.
That's right.
And something else to notice here too. We notice, again, look at this, retrieving the drop, and that's all over the place. So that introduced what? It introduced a lot of variability, right?
Dropping the ball.
Yes, dropping the ball.
That's where it came from Gina.
Yeah.
From your presentation.
Yeah. All right, so now we've got the data. We've got our data, we've got our improvement opportunity. Now we want to see, how do we currently stack up relative to where we want to be, the customer's expectation, looking at what we're doing, our current performance. Now, how might you go about doing that?
How does our current performance stack up to customer expectations? Well, the first thing you're going to ask are, what are the customer expectations?
Right, and we already defined that in quantitative terms. They expect us to produce it at 1 minute.
Right.
So that's excellent, yes.
Yeah.
Now, there are a variety of tools, and those of you in the quality business, there you get some very sophisticated statistical tools and very sophisticated methods. Again, the purpose today is to let you see you can use basic tools to look at things. One of the tools to look at answer this question would be for example, the histogram, which is a frequency distribution. Unlike the run chart, where we saw process performance over time, we might want to see how we stack up using a histogram. Now, a histogram shows the frequency of occurrence of specific events in a set of data. So in the case,
representation.
in the case of our process, we can see that when we were processing this ball, we can see with frequency that it took us 100 seconds. We produced, we did 10 balls that we processed 100 seconds. Some of them we did maybe 2 balls that took us 130 seconds to do, and others that took us less time. So we've got this kind of a distribution on there. And I'm not going to get into the details of distribution that, for this particular presentation, but the histogram does show us what our current performance is. Now, what if our customer wants us to perform, as we said, they wanted us to do it in 1 minute, 60 seconds. What does this tell you? How do we stack up? What is that telling you?
Well, it's
That's
going
what
to
the
tell us.
competition,
Pardon?
the competition.
Yeah, no, well, this is what our customer wants, and this is what we're doing.
You gotta shift the curve.
Process.
You gotta get our variation.
Right, our process is not capable, we're not performing to the customer expectation, we're going to have to shift. And that's our, again, that's our improvement opportunity.
That curve, by the way, suspiciously looks like a Six Sigma curve.
Yes, it does.
But that's not surprising.
Six Sigma.
Performance is negative 6 sigma.
You will be really lucky if you get that.
Yes, we would be very. Y'all are so good, my ringers. I probably should adjust that probably.
Yes.
All right, so then the next question is, we've seen what our current performance is, we've seen what the customer wants, and as you identified, we're not living up. So the next question is, how do we improve? What's the next steps to improve? So asking that question, why are we slow? What might you do to answer that question? Why are we slow?
But once you have the customer expectations down, then you know what to measure. And if the measurements are out of whack in terms of the customer expectations, then you know where to improve, right?
And we have a bottleneck.
And we will, so we're going to look at, now we've got to identify the reasons why we're slow. And again, if you go back to do that, we want to go back to our process. Look at our process. What did you observe in this process that might be slowing us down? Yes.
The terror had to uncrumble before they tore.
Exactly, that's one.
And,
Transporting the ball from person to person.
and the question I come up is why do we have to crumple first? Could we reorganize the crumpling?
Okay. And those are excellent questions. What else slowed us down?
When the ball wasn't tossed perfectly, it got rolled off the table, threw it over her head, the passing was
Hesitation to where it goes, which person it goes to.
And we, exactly, okay, and the ball got dropped too. So let's start with, so all of those are good reasons, all of those are reasons why. Let's start with looking at now, focusing on each of those individually. Why was the ball dropped? We'll focus on that one first. You can't just say, stop dropping the ball. You can't, if they could stop dropping the ball, they wouldn't have dropped it in the first place. So you want to look at what is the cause, why are they dropping that ball? And a good tool to do that is, the Ishikawa, the fishbone. Now, for those that aren't familiar with this, and when you do a fishbone, and again, Julie, if you want to by all means, correct my, help me with the explanation here. But normally when you do the fishbone, when you put the issue that you're trying to address at the head of the fish, then you can define some high-level categories of information that impact that issue to start asking your questions why. And it doesn't matter, these categories are common maybe to the manufacturing industry or whatever, and the service that may be different. You pick those categories based on what your need, but you're analyzing what your need is. Is that, would you be a fair assumption? All right, so let's do that. Why did we drop the ball? Let's look at the environment first. What about our environment here might have caused us to drop the ball?
We don't know each other, we're not a team.
Good point. Excellent.
Spread out halfway across the room from one another.
Spread out. Yes. Miss Note Taker, would you? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no
So
practice.
it was not the team, non-team, and spread out.
Yeah.
Or can you? Any other? So okay, those would be some. People are located far away. Maybe other.
There's no constraints on how much time each person has to do their part.
Okay.
So there's
All
no control.
excellent. All excellent points. And again, I would be typing these in here, but for the benefit of the scenario, I'm just going to bring up a couple of those so we can look at this new. All right. What about the process? What about the process that we used caused us to be slow?
My delivery wasn't in a form I could use.
No work instructions.
Excellent. Yes. Yes. Very
I
good.
didn't get it in the usable form.
Right. And you remember, y'all had questions for me beforehand. I didn't answer. I didn't give you good instructions, and very good. And yours wasn't in usable form, so not in usable form. That's one that okay. So it wasn't clear what to do. Maybe we had too many balls coming in there too fast, and our process allowed that to happen.
Too many steps.
Too many steps. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Not enough people doing the one part of the process that took the most time.
Right,
So you
okay.
have two people who are doing that part.
Okay. Excellent. All right. So what about
So you have
people? What about the people?
Activities.
The people we Tom and
Skills.
yeah.
Not trained.
Pardon?
Not trained.
They're not trained. Yeah. Maybe.
What do you mean?
But
I'm not
Skillful. Excuse me?
They were
actually, you're like you're just like the Navy. You can't. They weren't trained. They weren't. That wasn't really the
Well,
You're not a certified ball catcher.
yes, the question then becomes what kind of training
They were just.
so that you have people who have, let's say, they won't have equal athletic abilities, but perhaps they can have equal athletic skills.
See, and again, you automatically hop. Y'all are just like the Navy. Shame on you. See, it may not be a training issue. Maybe she does not. She's missing a hand. Maybe she's got a broken arm. Maybe
Right.
you're sick. Maybe there's some other. It's not necessary. Training is not going to fix that issue. The issue was there. The root cause was they didn't have the skill for some reason. They didn't have the ability. They didn't have the skill. That's the cause, not necessarily training. You're jumping to
There's
some.
something wrong with the process.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So, and again, maybe people don't have the skill to catch and throw the balls. So this is a good, again, we could go on, look at these additional issues. This is how you would look at the root cause. Now, what else slowed us down? Y'all brought this up before.
Sediment.
Yeah, in the bottom of the wine bottle, all that stuff accumulating. We had you mentioned the bottleneck. Remember, y'all had mentioned. And I apologize. Lynette. Yeah, Lynette slowed us down. She created a bottleneck.
She repeats.
Wait a minute. Lynette's process
Is the,
was not performing correctly.
Exactly.
What's wrong with Lynette?
Exactly.
Supposed to work and do the right job the right way the first time.
I did it exactly the way I did it most of the time. Did you notice that? It just took me longer than you all
Wait a
did.
minute, Lynette, I'm gonna take a look and see.
It just took
A little
longer.
different.
There was nothing wrong with my
So Gina,
process.
so are you defining another
You
problem?
have
Pardon?
unrealistic
Yeah, this is another problem.
Define another problem.
Defining another problem.
She said something very important. She said you might have unreal expectations of
Should be too.
some link in the system here who happens to be
I did my job just like.
Yeah, she did her job exactly the way she's supposed to, but you might have unrealistic expectations.
Okay, so those
as to
are
how
all
she does her
issues of
job.
why. So
Right.
another way to look at it, in addition to fish bones, they've got another technique is to just keep asking why. 5 whys. You had a bottleneck, well, why? Well, maybe the person tearing the paper was slow. Why? They didn't have the proper skills. Why? Well, maybe they weren't trained. Well, why weren't they trained? Maybe we didn't have time or resources to train them. So the real issue here is not training it. It's we don't have money to do it. We didn't have time. So what might be some other things that cause the bottleneck?
Why have to do the paper at all? Why not make this an electronic process? You can't drop electrons.
Okay, and that's excellent. So what's the problem? That would be that would not be why you're coming to the solution, making it electronic. So the problem is it's paper based, or is that what you're saying? Too much
Animated technology.
Yeah.
Obsolete.
Okay.
There's another possibility is why do each of one of these steps crumble, roll, tear, and toss sequentially? Why can't some of them be done simultaneously? I keep envisioning this machine in my head,
Yeah.
designed, and it does the crumble and roll simultaneously,
Yeah.
and then it's got this built-in defect which makes it tear the product, and then it tosses it out.
Okay, that's excellent.
Yeah.
So the problem, the issue there of the why is it's a linear kind of a process, and you're having
Yes.
to wait for people to process things. Okay.
Yeah.
And also maybe if she tore, maybe things get in the way again. Maybe the trash from the corners got in the way or whatever.
But I
So,
think I have
Maybe she
more,
forgot her glasses.
I have more steps than everybody else too.
yeah, you had a lot to do.
I had more steps than everybody
Yeah.
else.
You had a lot of stuff to do. Okay, so that would be these other issues that we would tie in. All right, so, and as you said, I call what you talked about tearing your paper, and you had to open it up and you had to tear it back. I would consider that would be like kind of over-processing. That would be something where maybe the steps weren't needed, as you say. Now, think about the process in your business. I meant to ask you that on the dropping the ball. How might that relate, for example, to your sales proposal process? And we'll do that in this slide.